everyone. I hope that you all are well and welcome to A Light Heart Tarot. And this is a channel that does mediumship readings, but also we talk about ways to connect with your loved ones as well as tools to help you with the grieving process. So today's video is not a mediumship video. It is a question that I receive often from people about how to connect with your loved ones, or how do I know that I am connecting with my loved ones. So in this video, we're going to talk about 5 ways that you may be connecting with your loved ones, and also additional ways to help you make that connection and to raise your vibration. So join me, and we're going to look into 5 ways that your loved ones are connecting with you. Okay, so the first way that your loved one may be connecting with you is through nighttime dreams, or even through your meditations, but mostly more than likely it will be through your dreams. Now, for those of you who have followed me on my YouTube channel with the mediumship readings, you know there is something that I call the bouncer in the club. Now, the bouncer in the club is our mind, and our mind is always trying to make sense of things. So in my own grief journey, my mind was trying to make sense of everything that was happening with me physically as well as emotionally. When I lost my partner, that wasn't the only death that I had experienced. And so I was experiencing grief from a young age of 6 years old. And so the brain was just trying to process everything. And also trying to process everything, it's also trying to protect me, to make sure that I am not creating more distress or anxiety in my life. And so a lot of times we will see signs, but the mind, bouncer in the club, will push it away, just like a bouncer in a club. It will say, that's not true, that didn't happen, or I need more proof. Now, when it is nighttime and when we're sleeping, or at any point when we're sleeping, where does the bouncer go? The bouncer goes and takes a break. And so that is an opportunity for our loved ones to come in when the conscious mind is not as on high alert. So usually what will happen is that you will receive a dream, and the dreams do not always have to be long. So sometimes it can be a brief moment, a quick snip, or it could be a long interaction that you have with your loved one. But usually, your loved one will take this time when the bouncer is away to then come in and let you know that they're okay. So they may come in, just giving you a hug, or smiling at you, or even telepathically letting you know that they are okay and that there's nothing to worry about. If your loved one was suffering from a long-term illness, or if they were in an accident, you will see usually your loved person show up in their best healthy self, or you will see them show up in the moment of time in their life where they felt their best. So sometimes if it's a grandparent may show up to you when they were in their 50s or their 40s, when they felt their strongest, or even at the age of when you were born, which would be when they were a happy moment. So your soul will know instinctively that that is your loved one. But they're coming in that way to let you know, I'm okay. There's nothing to worry about. Another thing that may happen in these dreams is that you may actually feel them, or you may sense that you are having emotions in the dream currently. Sometimes you may even have the dream in color. Now, I know some people either can't remember their dreams, or they have dreams in black and white, but sometimes the dream will appear in color, just to let you know this is different from all the rest. Now, what I will say is, if you're having a dream and you're hearing your loved one is is not speaking to you, looking like they're ignoring you or they're upset with you, or if there are scenes in which you see them in their not so great state, then what I will usually suggest is, if you remember the stream, obviously, is to take a look at what are some of the feelings and emotions that I am having towards my loved one. Is there regret? Is there anger? And just really take a look at that, because again, even though the bouncer in the club may be away on break, doesn't mean that there's not another bouncer who's like um who's watching on their behalf, and they may be projecting their fears, their sadness, and also guilt into dreams. And so I always say, if it's a dream where you're feeling worse off, then it is usually coming from the mind. Our loved ones, once they cross over, they have no interest in holding on to human emotions such as anger or jealousy or wanting to get back at someone. All they want to do is show you how much they love you and how much they care for you. And so, in a true visitation dream, all you're going to feel is love and understanding. If you're feeling human emotions, guilt, stress, someone being angry with you, then those are usually coming from our own self, our own consciousness. And I always say, work those things out. There's a exercise that I do, which is called the root. And so you take a piece of paper and just write everything in a circle. I am feeling stress because of this. Because of this, I am feeling A, B, C, D, whatever. This incident made me feel this way because of blah, blah, blah. And keep writing and keep writing and keep writing until you get to the root. And usually the root is something very simple. I'm sad. I am wish I could have done more. I wish I would have been there when this my loved one passed away. There's always a root reasoning that is the reason why we hold on to these larger feelings. So, again, if your loved one comes to you in a dream, it will usually be to show you that they're okay, they love you, and that they're always with you. And as you begin to also be more open, and as the bouncer is more open to allowing visitations, then there's opportunities for those dreams to become longer, or for you to then have other interactions, to be able to speak back to them, to be able to remember those dreams in full detail. There's just a variety of ways as those dreams can end up manifesting. But know that your loved ones, when you see them in their beautiful state, see them showing you unconditional love, that they are there. And even if the mind tells you that didn't happen, you know from your heart that it did. So that is way number one, that our loved ones can connect to us on the other side. Okay, so way number two that your loved one is sending you a sign would be through synchronicity and visual signs. So, visual signs can be a variety of things, such as dragonflies, blue jays, robins, a penny that you see on the ground. These are the common ways that we see signs, because these are the things that we see in movies, and our loved ones know that this is going to be a clear sign that what I can put in front of my loved one to let them know that I am here. Now, there are additional ways that our loved ones can also share signs, which I call synchronicities. And so, in those visual signs, it could be something as you are driving and there's a truck in front of you that has the name of your loved one. Or the way that I have received visual signs is through license plates. So anyone who follows me on my Facebook group knows that I share those license plates all the time, in which I will be thinking of something, and then all of a sudden there will be a license plate that will say, "I'm not dead," or "Love more," or "Hi," or just other things. There's just, I can name a whole bunch of different license plates. There's also visual signs that are not as apparent, such as you are walking outside and all of a sudden you see something such as a bee that is next to you, or an animal that doesn't seem familiar to that area that will be next to you, or even a person that all of a sudden takes on a visual appearance of your loved one. I have seen that, and those are the ones that really touch me the most, because I can feel, not only see, but I feel the connection with that person. We also have synchronicities, and synchronicities are very interesting. And I say they're interesting because, again, the bouncer in the club is always looking for things to kind of kick out of the club. But when synchronicities come in, the bouncer in the club knows it can't explain it, so its mind's blown. And sometimes it either makes it more frustrated or it's just like, we're just going to put this over here and we're not going to touch this for a moment. So, for example, synchronicities are a story that I have is one day, right, probably a year after Derek passed away, and I had started going back to work, and I was feeling just depressed, and I was feeling so sad, and it was in those moments where it was my whole body, my whole emotions, and everything showed it. And I'm at the ferry, and the first thing that I see is this white dove, or what, maybe it's just a white pigeon, I don't know. It lands right on one of the railings where I am at the ferry, and it's staring at me, and it's looking, and there's this connection that we make. And I get off of the ferry. This bird flies and follows me to the bus. Get to the bus, then all of a sudden I see a bus that has Derek's name on it. From the bus, I get to where I work, and I walk into the building, and I am going to press the button, and I bump right into Deepak Chopra. From that, I then went onto his site, and there was a video in which he was talking about grief and about life after death. And so all these little things kept happening, synchronicities that were leading me from one moment to the next moment to the next moment visually. And those are, sometimes it takes a lot of energy for our loved ones to do that, because you have to make sure that every single thing is in place at the right time when it needs to be. But it is another way that our loved ones connect with us. But as I said, it takes a lot of energy. So that's why usually our loved ones will use the method of pennies, birds, dragonflies, butterflies, or even things that you see on television. So those things are easy for our minds to connect to. When we get to bigger things such as synchronicities, then it's just like, as I said, bouncer in the club either accepts it or mind is blown, and it's just like, I can't deal. And it's a coincidence, and we're just going to put this to the side. But what I always say, not only with the dreams, but with also the visual cues, have a notebook. I can't show you right now, but I am looking at my shelves. I have a shelf full of notebooks. Every single time a number pops up, or a word pops up that is connected to something that my loved one would have said, I put it all in a notebook or I take a picture of it. And those things, when the brain keeps seeing those things, at some point it realizes it can no longer keep denying it and saying, that doesn't exist. So that's the second way, visual cues. Okay, next way that our loved ones communicate with us is through electricity and electrical items. So that includes things like televisions, which I kind of mentioned briefly in the visual signs, as well as radios, lights, anything that has to do with electricity. So our loved ones, when they transition and cross over, they no longer have the body, this heavy, dense matter that we walk around with, but they do retain the electricity and they retain energy. And so energy can always manipulate other energy. So they love playing around with that medium because it doesn't take as much energy for them to then make manipulations with that or to catch your attention, because those are things that we interact with all the time. And so if you see the lights going on and off, then that's something that your attention will be drawn to. Versus sometimes you may miss the penny, you may miss the butterfly that they send to you. But these are things that are really clear. So, a couple of examples. As I said, lights going on or off. I have had experiences in where I would come home and all the lights would come on before I even made it into the house, as a way of saying, welcome home, I see you. Or turning on the radio, and the radio would always seem to change the station to some song that was specifically for me. For I think for probably the first 2 months, I kept hearing Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, and Celine Dion, Because You Loved Me. And then I got tired of that, and I said, I don't want these songs that people listen to all the time. Give me something that really tells me. Because again, Bouncing the Club is just like, I don't believe this. And so I ended up getting Maroon 5. I'm at a payphone trying to call home. And so then I was just like, okay, I get it. But that's an example. Radio stations changing, the electricity, or even the television. Having the television um, turn on or off, or having there be static, and somehow your attention is drawn to that energy, and you know it's not something that's common, but it is something that is taking place to grab your attention. Another phenomenon that your loved ones will utilize is the telephone. Um, I've had situations in which um, Derek would call people's telephone, and anyone who knows me knows that I am not a telephone person. I'm someone who texts, and he would use the telephone to call people, and people would see the phone number, they would pick up, not hear anything on the other end, or they would hear someone breathing, and after a while they realized that it was Derek trying to let those people know, hey, check in on her. Or I even also had a situation in which he had the police come to the house, um, and that was definitely a life saving story, because I was having an issue in which I couldn't breathe. I was having trouble breathing in my sleep, and so the police came and helped me through that. But our loved ones, these are just examples to show how our loved ones use electricity and electrical devices to grab our attention or the attention of other people to make sure that we're okay. So, if you are in your living room and you see lights flickering on and off, you may be in your car, and all of a sudden, each time you get into the car, it's the same song that seems to be playing over and over again. And this is a song that you may have had a connection to with your loved one, or if you even are on the telephone and all of a sudden you may hear a glitch or a beep or whatever, know that that is another way that your loved one is trying to get your attention and say, hi, I'm here. Okay, so the next way that our loved ones connect to us is through the sense of smell. And so, smell is it's one of those things in which the mind, again, bouncer in the club, cannot create an excuse or have some type of way to explain it. But it is the thing that seems to connect us with our loved ones really closely. So there may have been a smell that you associate with your loved ones, such as walking into your grandparents' house and smelling um, apple pie or a cigar, or maybe it's just the floral scents that just the house just always seems to embody, or maybe a scent from a parent, or even from your loved one. um, those things, we have these wonderful memories, and our sense of smell, it stays kind of locked into our brain, so when we smell it again, we can make that quick associations say, oh, yes, that it belongs to this loved one. That belongs to that time when I got married, or when I had my child, or whatever the memory is. We're such, our bodies are so magnificent that it remembers everything through either visual cues or through smell, or even sometimes through taste as well. And so our loved ones will use that as a way to connect, to let us know, look, I'm around, I'm here. And so you may walk into the house and you'll smell cigars, knowing that you don't smoke cigars, or you will smell a perfume as you're driving, or maybe you're cooking something and you smell grandma's cookies. Those are such beautiful ways that our loved ones, they then associate and bring those smells to us, so that then we're connected to the memory, and we're connected to the memory, then we move down into our heart and we remember them um, from the heart. So it's this is a quick one, and it's an obvious one, but it's one that's so, I love it so much because it really, it just is this beautiful way in which, again, the mind can't try to say, oh, you you left the cigar burning, an imaginary cigar burning or something. It can't find an excuse to say that didn't exist, that didn't happen. It knows there is something that is going on here, and it accepts that, and it but it's another one of those things where the brain, again, it will quickly say, okay, I took it in, and now we're just going to put it to the side here. So that's why, again, it is so important to just make sure that as you're experiencing those things, you're writing it all down into a journal. The day that it happened, what your emotions were when that smell came up, and just anything, just free form writing on what you're thinking or what you were feeling, and you have something to look back on. And as you start looking and building the blocks between the other signs, then you start making the connections and start believing and knowing and living in the knowledge that your loved ones are really connecting with you. So, number 5 way that you can connect with your loved one is your loved one will sometimes send what I call earth angels to you. Now, these are people you may know or you may not know them. You may be standing at a bus stop and someone comes and offers you a kind word, or you're at a supermarket and you look into the eyes of a baby, but there is a connection that is made, and it is specifically that connection is there to help heal whatever grief or anxiety or feelings that may be coming up at that time. So an example of that is I was, again, all my stories take place around the ferry. So I'm at the ferry and I'm sitting down and a woman just sits down next to me and she just starts talking about how she lost her brother the week before and how he was experienced he had bipolarism and it was an overdose, and basically she was just telling me how much she knew that he was okay and that he was loved and that she was loved. And it was so interesting because one, I didn't call her over. I wasn't even looking at her. I had my earphones on and my shades on, and her sitting down and starting to talk to me was literally um one of those things in which I had to then take, all these things off and pay attention to her. But it was in a moment between two people who had experienced grief, and knowing that I wasn't alone, and knowing that I could be patient with myself and how I was feeling, what I needed. It was just so, it was such a relief off of my chest. And I have never seen that woman since on that ferry. And usually it's the same people who take the ferry back and forth into the city. But she was placed there at that time when I needed to hear her and to deliver a message. And you will have received different messages in different ways. So whether it is through someone speaking to you at a supermarket or even listening to a message on the TV and having that message connect to you, those energies, those people, that message was placed there at the time that you needed to hear it, when you needed to hear it, and to give you the healing that was needed from your loved one. And those are the best types of gifts because when our loved ones send us earth angels, they're listening, they have their ear to our heart, and they're listening and they know what it is that we need at that moment to get us through the next day, the next step, the next moments. And I'm really thankful that our loved ones employ those types of signs. But again, it's for us to also have an open mind, to an open heart, to be able to be open to receiving those messages. So that is the fifth way that we receive messages from our loved ones. Okay, so we've gone through a few different ways how our loved ones connect with us. And now the question that you may also be having is, well, how do I know that it's my loved one? The bouncer in the brain keeps telling me that this is a coincidence and that this, I'm making it all up. And especially when we are in that feeling and those emotions of wanting to connect, wanting to see our person, wanting to hear from our person one more time, there becomes kind of like a tug and pull. So there's the heart that wants to hear, and there's the mind that says, I'm trying to protect you. I don't want to see you hurt anymore. And so we're not going to accept that this is from your loved one. And so the mind will keep saying, this didn't happen. This isn't real. And so, how do we then allow the two of them to come together? So, the first thing, and you have always heard me say this in my readings on YouTube, which is be patient with yourself. Be patient with the timeline. Time here isn't the same as time on the other side. So, what could feel like a couple of months or a couple of years could be for them on the other side 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 1 hour. And so, if your loved one needs time to acclimate, if they need time to heal, they need time to do whatever they need to do, that timeline may be a month on our end. It may be 2 months on our end before they may have the energy to connect with us and let us know, hey, I'm okay. Hey, I love you. And I'm always watching over you. So we have to be patient, and they won't know that they will come to us when it is ready and ideal for them, and when the time is right for us too. The second thing is to not have expectations. And so, what I hear so many times is, but I didn't receive the dragonfly or the butterfly. Because these are the things that we're used to because we hear them in stories or seeing it on television. Um, and if we don't see it, then we think our loved one didn't connect with us. But we miss all the other different subtle signs and ways that our loved one is connecting with us, whether it is through the child who may be in front of us that shares the same name as our loved one at the line on Target, or maybe the song that keeps coming on that always comes on at the right time to lift our spirits up. So if we're always looking for these big signs, the things that we have heard about, then we miss the tiny ones. We miss the earth angels. We miss the music. We miss the electricity. And we miss all of the little tiny things. And also what I always say is to be curious and to be open to whatever happens. So that's why, as you have heard me mention multiple times in this video, have the journal. When you see numbers that come up, write it down. When you see words that seem to come up or things that you think is a coincidence, write it down, because when you write it down and you go back and you process it and you see everything else that is happening around you, then your mind starts realizing there's something more to this. This isn't just a coincidence. It's not just the song that keeps playing. There's something more. And the mind then becomes curious, and it becomes allowing into seeing what else. And so allow these things to happen to then be able to develop that communication with your loved one. And as I just say, above all, just always know in your heart too that your loved one, if they could be here and tell it to you in person, they would be. But that love never dies and life doesn't end. And they are able to connect with you. It's in a different way, but they're still connecting with you, still watching over you, and still holding your hand and cheering you on. So I hope that helped. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put it in the comments below, or to ask your questions. I'm more than happy to answer anything that may come up for you. And just know, from my heart and from your loved one's heart, we're holding you in love, holding you in light, and just saying what a great job you're doing. It's a hard job to move and navigate through grief, but you're doing a great job. And just take it day by day, step by step, and we will be with you along the way. And I'll talk to you all soon. Namaste.